right. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a fun topic about toddlers. Aren't they great? Toddlers are awesome. Very funny, very interesting. Um, but they are known for food refusal. So let's talk about that. Let's break down when it's normal, when it's not normal. So we're going to talk about that specifically, some red flags, and very importantly, like some tips for how to respond when this happens. Okay. So without further ado, let's dive right in. You are so not alone in this. Every toddler goes through a very appropriate developmental stage where they realize that they can control things in their environment, which is very exciting for them. Some really roll with this and they get super specific about their wants and needs. I'm sure you've met some of those toddlers before. Um, but it's normal and it's actually a good thing, because it means that their brains are developing appropriately, right? That's supposed to happen. So, yeah, it's frustrating and annoying, but it's still super important. So, keep that in mind when you're pulling your hair out. Food strikes are really common, but there is a period of time where it's appropriate and then it becomes not appropriate. Okay. So when is it appropriate? I'm going to give like an age range here of 2 to 3 is a pretty common one. Okay. But I will say that depending on your child's development, that stage, right? Okay. So typically in a completely normally developing child that has no diagnoses or cognitive issues going on, it'll be around 2 to 3 years old that you see this developmental change, this little switch happening in their brain. But if there is a developmental delay, any kind of cognitive delay, that might happen a little bit later in time, just so you know. Like I've had kids go through that at 7 because of their autism, so like developmentally, it's like, like when they up until then, they were like pretty much like nothing bothered them, seemingly the easygoing child where nothing bothers them, right? All of a sudden, they have a personality. All of a sudden, they, um, you know, they have all these demands. I always say that's a good thing. That's a good thing because that means that they're reaching a certain developmental place in their brain. Okay, but anyways, this normal phase is going to come with some fear of new things. Okay, it could be called neophobia. It's totally normal. They're just being cautious. Their brains are learning to be cautious, essentially. Yeah. And it's about a lot of unfamiliar things. So not just about food. So you're going to see this happening across the board when it's on the normal side of this spectrum, right? Also, you want to keep in mind that you want to keep offering new foods, but just be relaxed about it. No pressure. Over time, these kids are going to come around because, again, it's a small period, a small window of time. So it's not something that's always going to be happening. Okay. The other part of this is that their appetite will actually dip a little bit. So you might be like, oh my gosh, they were eating all this food and now all of a sudden they're not eating. They grow really, really fast up until like 2. But sometimes the appetites don't match like the energy levels too. But it is normal for them to like slow a little bit, which means that they're not going to necessarily need all of the food they were eating before. So that's normal to get that appetite dip. They might be more interested in snacking and grazing than a full meal. It's just something to keep in mind. As long as they're staying hydrated, their growth seems steady, Usually, this is just part of the normal developmental process. But here are the red flags. When is it not normal? Because I will tell you, and I'll be honest, a lot of times parents will see this happening before the age of 2, like at 1, 1.5 sometimes. They'll be like, all of a sudden, they started dropping all of their foods when they turned 1 or something like that. Like they were eating everything from 6 months to 1 year. 1's a little early for this developmental period to happen, right? So that would be a little red flag for me. It's not during the typical, it's like way earlier than the typical period. So that's a little interesting and strange. Also might not be normal if there's a weight loss that's happening. Maybe they're losing weight or not gaining as expected. It can indicate they're not getting nutrients. It could also very often can be explained by poor nutrient absorption, which is a gut issue. But again, the gut issue is a red flag. So weight loss, again, is the red flag there. Sometimes caused by poor nutrient absorption in the gut. So that's definitely something that we keep in mind and we ask a lot about in our case history when we do that. All right. Also red flag number 2, extreme emotional reactions. Very intense, out of proportion reactions to food specifically, like screaming, gagging, refusing most things, most meals, may signal deeper anxiety and sensory issues around food, especially at that age. It could be some oral motor things, some sensory things, but it is causing some sort of an anxiety that's provoking this extreme reaction, right? So some resistance is normal, but extreme, that can maybe signal some more emotional distress. It shouldn't be big over the top reactions. Okay. Another red flag, limiting the diet to fewer than, I would say, 20 foods. Sometimes we get 10 to 15. That's pretty low. Sometimes our kids go real low, like under 5. A lot of times these kids will eliminate an entire food group. Another red flag, right? We shouldn't. Limiting yourself or seeking control doesn't mean that we're not going to eat any vegetables anymore or any fruits or any meats. That's not true. When you get really narrow in the range of foods that they're able to eat, especially sometimes they'll drop foods they previously liked, which could be normal. But if they're dropping a lot of foods, it might probably be a more serious issue for sure, especially if this is happening alongside some of the other red flags that I'm mentioning. Definitely worth getting a professional assessment from someone who understands, again, gut, sensory, oral motor, and mindset, right? The 4 pillars. Another red flag, gagging, spitting, vomiting from meal times. Frequent gagging, spitting foods out, vomiting, sometimes even just at the sight of foods. This is beyond typical toddler exploration, especially at this point. You expect gagging at 6 months when they're first starting solids. You expect spitting out when they're first, putting solid foods in their mouth, maybe doing baby-led weaning. That is normal. It's not normal for a 2-year-old to be gagging, spitting, vomiting their food. Okay. This can be a sign that eating is either causing anxiety, that their oral motor skills are not able to handle the foods, or that the sensory issues are too overwhelming and it is overwhelming their sensory system and they can't handle it. And that is their body's way of getting that thing far away from them. Okay. So these are usually a huge red flag that the body is rejecting food for reasons beyond preference. And another red flag, disinterest in eating. Kids should be hungry naturally. If they're showing lack of interest in food altogether, especially when they previously enjoyed eating, usually it signals something else. And I will say that usually something else is gut related with the total disinterest in food. A lot of times I see this even at the 6-month mark. Kids should be curious about food. They're usually watching their parents. They want to do what they're doing. They want to eat the foods. They're very focused on it. The kids that the parents tell me, it was really strange. Even when we started solids, they didn't seem interested. They never seemed hungry. They never seemed to like it. Huge red flag. Even at the 6-month mark, that's a red flag for me. Something else is usually at play. Sensory, oral motor, gut, sometimes all three. But that is more than normal picky phase, but something deeper. So again, if you have no idea where your child is now, we need a baseline. So please head over to the pickyeaterstest.com, find out what type of eater they are. If they are fearful or stuck or curious, those all warrant some level of help, not all the same exact level of help, but it will from there give you what would be an appropriate next step for your child who is in that category, and how we can start to help them move forward. So now, speaking of moving forward, here are some tips to respond without completely panicking. I don't want you to completely panic. That's not good for anyone. Stick to your regular routines with food. Consistency is key. Hopefully you do have a regular food routine. If you don't, start implementing one. Routines are great. They build safety and comfort. The last episode talked a little bit about that as well. Keep offering the meals and snacks at regular intervals. Should be about every 2 hours. They should be hungry about every 2 hours. That's normal for a toddler. They should be eating something small about every 2 hours. Even if they refuse, it's important to stick to the routines. They know that food's going to be available, so they feel secure. Number 2, offer tiny portions. Bring the amount of food way back. So maybe if you're used to giving them a full plate of food because that's what they were eating before, I'm not saying don't offer that. I'm not saying decrease the number of foods. I'm just saying decrease the size of each portion of the food on the plate. Okay? Don't overwhelm them with the large portions. Even one bite of each food might be a good start. Let them explore it at their own pace. And just really try to avoid getting into the trap of the pressuring and the bribing of, come on, just eat it, or sneaking it in when they're not looking. Do avoid that trap completely. Again, a typical toddler is going to eat something when they're hungry. A typical toddler is not going to refuse all foods, all meals. That's, again, a way to separate something else is going on here from this is just them being a toddler. Okay. So just so you know that. Last, keep exposing, even if they're not eating. So just keep exposing. Let's just say they eat nothing for snack. Doesn't matter. Bring out some more foods, even different foods, maybe at the next meal. Continue offering new and familiar foods just without pressure. Okay. They might need dozens of exposures to new foods before they're willing to try it. So just be patient and consistent. I see a big mistake that parents make is they say, oh, they used to eat this, but now they don't anymore. So they stop offering the food. Big mistake. You always want to continue offering all of the foods. Don't assume that they don't like it anymore. They're just in a little phase, at least if it's normal developmental picky eating. That's just a phase. They will come out of it. But if you took away all of the foods that they refused on any random given day, you'd be left with probably a much smaller group of foods. And then they can get stuck in a rut, and they can get stuck in a loop because that's all they've been exposed to. So now they've come to expect that this is what their plate should look like. And when there's something different on their plate, well, that's not supposed to be there, right? We don't want them to do that. We want variety, a good amount of variety at every meal. Doesn't matter if they eat it or not, okay? But if you're seeing those red flags I mentioned, right? Extreme fear reactions, gagging, spitting, disinterest in eating, do not wait it out. Please, doesn't matter if you join me or not, please just don't wait it out. Doesn't matter to me who you go to. All right, that's actually not true. There are some people that could make things worse, but in general, you can find hopefully a feeding specialist, somebody who's knowledgeable in this area. I know it's not always easy to find, and that's why we offer things to people all over the world. Regardless, doesn't matter. The point is, don't wait and see. Take this information, know the red flags enough to be like, all right, I know there's something more going on here. Let me get some professional insight, okay? Because the longer you wait, the more foods that drop, the harder it is to get them back, the longer the period of time that has gone on. And then what happens is we get parents who come to us and their kids only have 2 or 3 foods. It's a lot harder to get in good nutrition that way. It's a lot harder to build the trust back when you've eliminated so many foods for so long. So the sooner that you jump on this, the better things are. Okay. So just don't assume that, well, she's 2.5, so it's just the picky eating stage. I'm just going to wait. If you're seeing the red flags, it may not be just the stage. Please don't wait. By doing this early, it can prevent the problem from becoming bigger, more entrenched issues that take longer to fix. So the sooner you seek guidance, the faster they'll make progress, the better the long-term outcomes will be. People waste years waiting for their children to grow out of this, and they don't, because the red flags were there. They just didn't know what they were. They didn't take action, and it's not the parent's fault. Sometimes even the pediatrician, they're not trained in this. Not every SLP is trained. A lot of people think, oh, all the OTs and SLPs, they are trained in feeding. They would know if their oral motor skills weren't good. They would know if their sensory system's out of whack. The doctor would know if their gut had a problem. Do not assume that everybody knows everything about this very complex issue. I've spent a lot of time in training to know about all of these areas, but that is not the norm. So don't assume that people know and are giving you the perfect right advice that's right for your child. So if your gut is telling you something is wrong, then trust your gut. Something is probably needing to be addressed. Okay. So, of course, we always offer our services. Why wouldn't we, right? We have this available to help. That's what we do. We love helping parents. We love helping kids overcome these challenges. So you don't have to navigate this alone. We have a holistic approach that looks at all of these areas and all the layers and the complexities and gives you a plan. I'm not saying you have to use us or come to us, but please seek out some help if you are seeing the red flags. But if you do choose to come with us, letting us help along with your journey, we are very happy to do so. And we do have a lot of tools and resources to help make this successful for you. So if you haven't already, at least get a baseline of where your child is at by going to the pickyeaterstest.com, take that quiz, get an idea of where you're starting from. And from there, the quiz will guide you about what the next steps would make the most sense to help you see the most progress as quickly as possible. Okay, that's what I have designed this system to do. And of course, any questions, you could always reach out to us for more guidance and support and help. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. We will see you again next week.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.